My apologies, team. We're having some technical difficulties there. Before we get started, please make sure you read the disclosure. If you're following along with us, make sure you're doing a demo account, as this is for educational purposes only. We are not financial advisors, and this is not financial advice. Still running a little late here. We're going to just jump onto the charts immediately. No confirmation as of yet. We have NAS on the left, US 30 on the right. So based off the early model, we had a manipulation move down. We swept out all the lows, Asia lows, London lows, and then we came back up into the blue zone, and now we're above the blue zone. So remember, manipulation move lets us know that the market actually wants to go in the other direction. That green line right there. We also had news drop at 10 o'clock. I believe it was crude oil inventories. No red folders today. So the early play would have been that manipulation move and then right into the blue zone. Now we're back at the blue zone. We're most likely coming back up into previous day's gap. So the only times you want to extend the new day opening gap, as mentioned before, they're really only good for the day, but you want to extend it if the market if you see the market retracing up to it, and then we had previous day's high here. So previous day high, and there's the new day opening gap. So we're most likely at least going to get up to here. Yesterday, obviously, we set the low, most likely the low for the week. So I don't know if we're going to take out previous day's high, but I can see us getting at least up to here. This market right there. Right now we have a green box. We have a upside expansion model. So even though we swept out the lows, the model's still intact. And we're right at this blue zone where we're getting some reaction. I'd like to see it continue up. We're also getting an early retracement as we're back at the EMAs. So I want to see this thing just punch right through, give us a bullish confirmation, a fair value gap, and then right into previous day's opening gap, which is right here, and then maybe all the way up to previous day's high. That's the play we're looking at for NAS, but just patiently waiting. So for anybody who got that early entry, there was the manipulation move down. There was no 5M fair value gap created here at all. Look how tight this is. That lets you know they don't want you to get in. We even had a double break. So remember, anytime you get a double break, market usually wants to continue in that direction with a deep retracement, but it punched right through. So a lot of unconventional things are happening right now that go against our strategy. But the only valid move here for the opening, or sorry, for the morning was the manipulation down and retracement back to the blue zone, because that happened before the double break. So you went up, then you came back down for the double break. So you would have already got your TP in that blue zone. Now this market could go either way, but right now we're going to just trust the confluence. That's why we're waiting for that bullish confirmation. Once we get that bullish confirmation, then we're confirmed. Then there's an 85% chance that the bottom of this range will not be broken. And since we've already done an early retracement and there is no 5M fair value gap in here, it'll most likely give us a confirmation and then take whatever fair value gap it creates and then head up. But until we get that confirmation, it could just drop. we want statistics on our side. US 30, same thing. We did the manipulation move down. It did create a big NYC fair value gap right there. But did it tap it? Let's see. Just barely right here, nicked it. And then it's above today's new day opening gap. My apologies if the stream is a little slow today. We were having some technical difficulty, still trying to figure it out. Hopefully it won't affect us too much. So there we go. I want to see this thing give us a bullish confirmation, rip right through, and then take out previous day's opening gap right here, the green line, and then potentially previous day's high. But this I want to see at least get up to. We have, we're looking at the CFD contract here, NAS, US 30. There's a fair value gap in here for US 30. So if we get a bullish confirmation, we could dip down here, tap that fair value gap. There's the purple zone right there, and then continue up from there. See where previous day's high is for your, I guess we're well above it. We're well above previous day's high. There's previous day's low for US 30. NAS is the more interesting play for me right now. We've had no other confirmations across any other assets. Here we go. We could be getting our confirmation right here. This thing could be moving fast. Just waiting. We're now well above the blue zone. This candle closes in 1 minute and 30 seconds. We want to stay above this blue zone now. Could get a confirmation on this next candle. And then those are our levels. If you're looking at the futures contract, those levels are 21,397.50. 45 seconds left. Again, this is why we wait for confirmation. Look at this long wick. We want to close above the blue zone. There's actually two blue zones here, I believe. Let me zoom in here. Yeah, there's two blue zones right there. The dark one, the lighter one above it. The darker one is the stronger one. Where the darker the color of the zone, the stronger it is. Same thing with the purple zone. You'll see this almost like magenta, maroon color versus a lighter purple. 13 seconds, we want to close above. We drop down into the 1M. There's a small sliver of a fair value gap right there, which is also the blue zone on the 1M. So again, we don't want to see the market drop below that. Stay on the 5M. So we closed above it. And you'll see all these levels match up. For example, our blue zone happens to also be a level coming in from London. Oh no, that's actually the New York fair value gap. That's how long it took for it to be created. There was no 5M fair value gaps in here. So this is the NYC fair value gap. There you go. Now I just want to see it continue up from here. This is pretty sloppy. Pretty sloppy day today. As mentioned before, when you see this, it's kind of a tight range all through New York, it doesn't really want you to get in. You would have had to drop to a 1M and gotten in here to take this all the way to the blue zone, or even up to this blue zone. That was the only real good trade so far for the morning session. And now we've taken out the other side of that range, and we're well above the blue zone. So again, telltale signs are that this thing wants to continue up, but we'll see. US 30 reacting off of this fair value gap. Right here. Anytime you're wondering if something's a fair value gap, I've had actually people message me because they're not 100% sure. They'll see really long wicks that almost look like they touch, and they think there's no fair value gap in there. But again, the indicator paints it out for you. The spotlight indicator paints out all fair value gaps for you. Like you just see a little red or green right here, like green, red, green. You just got to zoom in and then paint them out using the box tool. We might be getting a confirmation here on US 30. The only reason I favor NAS over US 30 right now is I haven't been watching US 30, so I'm not sure where all the levels are. We've already taken previous day high. Let me jump up to the 7. I just want to see what highs are. So there's a huge fair value gap in here. Let's take the midpoint. So we're actually past the midpoint of that 7-hour fair value gap. Yeah, could go as high as here. Just looking for levels to where US 30 could be going. I'm already familiar with NAS's levels. Let's drop down to the 5 again. So we could be getting a confirmation on this one. So since we've had the cross, we haven't touched the 20, so we could do one little, once we get that confirmation, one little dip down, hit this fair value gap, because we haven't touched this fair value gap yet on the 5M. And the 20 is sitting right in it, so this is now the area of interest. It could go as deep as this, since it did really leave this open, the opening gap. We'd like to see some reaction off of here and then a push up. We're back at the blue zone here. '20's right under it. Bounced off that 20. We had that crossover. I don't really want to see it sink too deep now. Honestly, I don't want to see it get anything lower than this. Since we do have another blue zone down here, I don't want to see it drop any lower than this. It shouldn't need to. Just want to start ripping now. There's no fair value gap here either. So once we take this, once we get this confirmation, then we're just looking for a quick entry. I want to see if there's room, obviously. There's no fair value gap being created here. We're going to have to see if there's one created by the actual confirmation move. Let's say it's here. Just taking some measurements for now. And depending on where our low is. This is really the only area I'm interested in. Could it take previous day's highs? It could. They're pretty close to each other, but this is the only area I'm really interested in right now. So I got to make sure one standard deviation is probably above this, obviously, with this big range that we have today, but let's see what it gives us. Still above the blue zone, that's a good sign. Hopefully this doesn't turn out like oil yesterday. Oil did not move all the way through until the end of the day. It just gesticulated exactly there. Dropped a little, went up a little, didn't hit our zone, and it did not hit one standard deviation, just stayed in the middle. But again, that's just the state of the markets right now. That's not something we can control. So here we go. Let's see if we get this confirmation. As mentioned before, anybody joining us late, I want to rip through this green line right here, previous day's opening gap. That's my target if we get a bullish confirmation. We manipulated down first, which let us know that the market did want to move up, but that's already been delivered to the blue zone. That was the early session. The reason we didn't go early today was because of the minor news that dropped at 10 o'clock. I hate 10 o'clock news drops. I'd rather they happen early, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, so they're out of the way. We're green on the 1, the 5, and the 15, and on the daily, so we're still bullish. Upside expansion model. Just waiting. And I've said this many times, even if there's no room for me here, I'd rather sit out and just do ticker tape reading. Just read the markets, let you guys know what's happening. For me personally, there's not enough room for me to get to this target. This is the only target I'm interested in, especially after the last 2 days of drop, the big drops that we've had. I can see it retracing up to here, but anything beyond that, I wouldn't be confident. We do have a confirmation on US oil right now. I think both these industries look a little bit more, both the indices look a little bit more interesting right now, but we can take a quick look. Just want to see which direction. Okay, so we got a bearish confirmation on US oil, but we've already hit one standard deviation. Look at that one drop. So that's not something I'd be interested in. And we had a small range. Right across the board though. Sell model. Almost hit 1.5 standard deviation. So the low-hanging fruit's already been taken. If it hadn't, this looks like a really interesting setup. Not that it can't go deeper. Let's take a look at what the 4-hour high and low is. See, we're kind of floating here. So these are the 4-hour lows. Close to taking those. And these will be the next ones. 3 minutes left in this candle close on NAS. We're still above the blue zone. I want to see some displacement. If I see a lot of gesticulation back and forth, this is not an area where this should be happening. 2 blue zones, 20 EMA, crossover's already happened. There's nothing stopping this thing from ripping through, but again, if it drops, then that's just massive manipulation. So yeah, we've already hit that target. And that next target is all the way at over 3 standard deviations. Here's a retracement happening right now. So we had our confirmation. Yeah. I personally am not interested in oil. I don't know how. It's already dropped a lot. And we've already hit our low-hanging fruit, so. Plus we manipulated to the downside. This is the manipulation range. So it was only taken right now with confirmation. So there's the top of the manipulation range, that green line, and here's the bottom of the manipulation range. So this could be the false move. Now we're coming back at least into the blue zone, which I think it already touched. And I said before, you can make the strategy your own. There are people that literally look for the manipulation move and then a retracement back into the blue zone and they're done. But if it doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. See? We're still above the blue zone. Nah, still looks like the more interesting play from here to here. But again, the longer it stays here, more problematic that becomes. We want to see that confirmation at the very least. Gesticulation after confirmation, that's fine. But when you start getting this much consolidation before you even have a confirmation, that's when it becomes problematic and maybe something you just want to avoid. Nobody wants to sit through this slop. Did we touch that blue zone? I just want to see. Just short of it. We did touch the 20 EMA. Yeah, I'm a little leery here because that was the manipulation move. That's how you use these two indicators in conjunction with each other. If you get a manipulation move in the same direction as your confirmation, then trust the models you have. So as mentioned before, we have a sell model and we have a, hard to see, so we have more of a, I'm going to turn this indicator off for a second. All those colors can get a little much. Yeah, so we have a trumpet model here. Usually on a trumpet model, the market likes to go back and forth, taking out highs and lows. So this thing could actually take out these highs now. Yeah, so I'm not interested. We've already hit the 1 standard deviation. I'm not interested. If anything else, oil could rip through and actually take out these highs now. Let's go back to US 30. I think oil's already delivered. We've taken out these 4-hour lows, and we've already gone past the 1 standard deviation. You want the manipulation to match up. So technically, you want the manipulation move to be in the opposite direction of your confirmation. Remember, the confirmation is stronger than the manipulation move, but at the same time, when you have that confluence, that's the best right here. For example, we manipulated down. That means the market wants to go up. If we get a bullish confirmation, that just seals the deal for us. We're above all the levels. We're already green. Let's see what happens. Just patiently waiting and watching, but again, I want to see it get up to these levels after our confirmation. US 30, we're sitting inside of a big fair value gap, but we are green across the board for now. Something similar here, we manipulated down. So if we get that bullish confirmation, no confirmation yet, so if we see this kind of retracement, this early retracement, then this thing could move fast. And that's the highest I'm willing to take it. So I'm sure there's room from here, but we've had no confirmation. That's why I was hoping to get a confirmation before this retracement. That would have gave us more hope and a higher probability from here. Would have been an 11.65R. Most likely a little lower here, 7. So I do want to get this confirmation first, then a tap of the 20. Now this looks like it's pushing. Now it's close to a confirmation here. Fortunately, we still got 4 minutes left. Remember, we want to see a candle close above the range for the confirmation. So it could just come up here. That's the weekly range right there with the aqua. Both these markets just stalled. My bias is still bullish though. I think we're going to rip right through these levels. We're at 11 o'clock. So we took out these highs again. Another positive point of confluence for our bias. Still 3 minutes left. So if we get that confirmation, we've already done an early retracement. It could honestly just push off of the first 1M fair value gap that's been presented to it. I'm going to take both these ones for now. "29 seconds. Remember, we do not have a confirmation on the 5M yet. I'm just trying to plot this for now. See, still no confirmation. We're close. See what I mean though? It keeps filling in all the fair value gaps before it's actually giving us a confirmation. It's trying to limit anybody from getting in. I wanted that confirmation and then a retracement to these fair value gaps. Now we're back at the 20 EMA. How much time do we have left here? 1 minute 35 seconds. I'm going to still wait for that confirmation. One minute 19 seconds left. And I want to see that confirmation. And then this thing could most likely move fast all the way up here. That's previous day's opening gap. And then there's previous day's high. Where the indicator paints out all these points for you now, the blue zone indicator. "47 seconds left. Come on, give us our confirmation." After this, I'll walk you guys through yesterday's Asia trade on gold. It was actually very, very clean, worked like clockwork. We might start going live during the Asia session. We're getting some really, really clean setups on gold now. Same strategy. Manipulation. As soon as the manipulation zone is broken, you look for an entry in the opposite direction. And during the Asia session, it's usually in the direction of the purple zone or in the direction of the new day opening gap. And hopefully in the direction of both if they lined up. And we'll walk over that Asia trade right after this. I didn't even look at the London. Let me look at the London zone real quick. Maybe we'll wait. So again, we had an upside expansion model, bullish confirmation, extended, then a little bit of a retracement back to the 20. Mostly gesticulated though. We stayed inside the range during the entire trade. For the early entry model, we manipulated up first, and then you would have taken that trade. Yeah, didn't quite make it to, did it make it to the end dog? Oh, so the end dog's down here. It's a little short on both. Manipulated up, came back down, and did not take out the red zone until much later. That would have blown it out. There's your confirmation, hopefully, here on this next candle, but that's also the move. Some days you have that, right? Some days it leaves without you. We're just waiting. Two minutes, 42 seconds left. We want this confirmation to stick. We want to use this fair value gap. And those are the targets. Previous day, opening gap, previous day, high. But we want to see this stay open now. Remember, this is the only fair value gap that's been created. That was on the 1M, but this is on the 5M right here. Just eyeballing it. Still got 2 minutes for this fair value gap though to form. Still driving, 55 seconds. Or if it leaves without us, that's fine. I want to see this fair value gap left open, come back, touch it, and we'll look from here. And even then, as mentioned before, I don't like the risk to reward from here, but I'm just going to be reading this tape for you guys. Because think about where your low is, right? On the 5M, right now your low is down here. It's a 1.25. Now if it comes back in here on the 1M, and we see a better trade setup, we can decrease that. So there's our confirmation. Get a 1 to 3, let's even here, let's say. This is our zone right now. I want to see it retrace back, at least into this zone, the red. Otherwise, there's no room for to grow. This could just shoot right up, tap these without coming back, but it's all about finding the right entry. Three minutes left. I want to see if it dips down or if it leaves this fair value gap. Then we'll start looking here. Again, look how tight that range is. One standard deviation is all the way up here, but the way the market's been behaving the last couple of days, again, I'm not interested in getting past this point for my targets. So it has to give us a good entry. And right now that's not looking like the case. Two minutes, 29 seconds left. US 30 did not give us a confirmation, and we're back at that fair value gap, back at the 20. Two minutes left. Let's see if this fair value gap is left open or if we dip back into this one. This is what I want to see. I want to see a dip into this. Doesn't have to necessarily touch that 20, but this is the only place I'd be interested in looking. We're right up against the weekly range as well. Yeah, again, I wish we had some more room here. Come on down. 1 minute left. We do not want to see this fair value gap left open. Because if it leaves it open, that means it could just tap here and go, and that's even less room. There's nothing 1 to 3. There's no 1 to 3 here for us. Because where's the low? Low's still here until you see something happen. Until you see another low being created on the 5M, or unless you see a series of fair value gaps being tapped on the 1M. This is what I mean. When sometimes you know exactly where it's going to go, but it has nothing to do with that. I can forecast this all day long. Take a look at our GBP trade. It went exactly down to the tick where I said it was going to. It bounced off of that because I knew it wasn't going to go lower, and then it came back up. Because both those indicators, we were using both those indicators in confluence. One, the spotlight gave us a bearish confirmation, and at the same time, the blue zone indicator was giving us a buy. That meant it was going to come midway. So I can tell you where it's going. That has nothing to do with it. Do we have room? Does it match our risk to reward? Two things you'll never see me do. One is sit there biting my nails. Second is get FOMO. You can avoid both those and just stay calm and patient. You're doing it right. If that means watching things go by, then that's fine too. So we left this fair value gap open. I'm not interested in taking it from here. If it dips lower down to here, we can even take this whole thing since there's two fair value gaps back to back. And then let's see what that looks like with our risk to reward. Yeah, still 1.71. Not interested. If it comes down lower, it's going to adjust this to exactly where it would have to go for me to be interested. even there is fine. So this is still this fair value gap is still my area of interest. I want to see it come down to here, maybe even down to the 20, and then give us a setup on the 1M. Another thing to watch for, a lot of people do this, make this mistake. They set up their calculator here. Their long short position calculator is what I call this thing. So as soon as it touches that zone, they start looking for an entry, but by the time they actually get into an entry, it's up here. So remember, your entry has to be down here. Your 1M fair value gap, wherever you have your setup, should be in that zone where your risk to reward makes sense. From here to here. Right now we're getting a bounce off that fair value gap. Let's see what it looks like on the 1M. Remember, hit a fair value gap, leave a fair value gap. Let's see if it created a fair value gap on the 1M. Not yet. Which is a telltale sign that this thing could push down a little bit further. Stick to the strategy. Or it's the same strategy that's got us sitting at, here's the leap contest. We're in the 5th percentile, 5% of participants. Actually, there was a small trade. Let me update this. Did it go up? There you go, went up a little bit. Sadly, we dropped as far as percentages in participants, but 40.90% is what we're sitting in the leap contest held by TradingView. It's a realized gain, 2,254. This is not over leveraging, this is not over trading. This was sticking to the strategy. There's only how many days left in this? 1 day left. So that might be our final score. See if we can get a trade in today in the during the Asia session. Still no 1 minute fair value gap created here. Ten minutes left in our stream. I'd like to see 1 minute fair value gap. Let me see what it looks like on the 5M. So we filled in this fair value gap. We could drop a little lower. Ideally, I want the entry to be here. This is the only way it makes sense to me. 1.264 RR. But I don't know if we're going to make it down to this fair value gap. Remember, hit a fair value gap, create a fair value gap. So we hit the 5M fair value gap. Have we created another fair value gap on the 1M yet? Not yet, so it could drop a little lower. We're bouncing off the 20 EMA. Sadly, our targets are not that far away though. Previous day opening gap right here in the green. Previous day high right there in the yellow. Not much room for growth. No 1 to 3. But I'm just doing the ticker tape reading for you guys. This is not a trade I'd be interested in until it dropped into my zone, my 1 to 3 zone. Let's see if we get a 1M fair value gap here. Nothing yet. Sometimes you got to zoom in. It could just be like a little sliver. See? Right there. Let's see if it stays open though. 17 seconds left. Most likely it will. Maybe not. So it hasn't tapped it yet. But again, could it take off without us? It could. Now you want to see if it violates this fair value gap. Remember, if it takes out these lows with this candle, then you start the mission all over again. So it violated the fair value gap. Again, if it takes out these lows, there you go. See, this is why we wait. Now at least we're coming back into a more interesting zone. I'll decrease it back to this fair value gap. Looks like it wants to do one more run to that 20. We gotta wait for another fair value gap to be created on the 1M, since that one doesn't count anymore. 7 minutes left in the stream. Still no room for grow here. So we did tap this fair value gap. We're bouncing off the 50 here. Let's see if it gives us another green fair value gap here now. And it respects it. That's why we wait for these rules. Remember, it's not just about tapping a fair value gap. You want to tap it, and then the next candle has to engulf it. You want to respect the fair value gap, not violate it. Violation of a fair value gap is when one candle closes below it, and then the next one, even if the next one closes above it and engulfs it, we still count that as a violated fair value gap. You want it to be respected, like this one's being respected now, but let's see if it sticks. No green fair value gap created yet, so you're not missing anything. We're under the 20, between the 20 and the 50 EMA, still above the fair value gap. Still waiting for that 1M bullish fair value gap to be created. That's the only last step left. We've hit this fair value gap. Remember, you want to be in a high probability trade set up 1 hour after the range formation. That's 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. Range is fully formed at 10:30. Now it's just got to give us the telltale signs here. We need a 1M fair value gap. If we get another break of this low, and it just keeps dropping, we're already at 11:27. Then we'll pass on this today. As mentioned before, the room for growth isn't really much. Our targets are up here. Not really a huge 1 to 3 here. Previous day high, new day opening gap from yesterday. So if we punch through this fair value gap, that'll most likely be our time. Did we take the low? Not quite. Or did we? Still no fair value gap created. US 30 still sitting there as well. Right at the 20 EMA. Right at that fair value gap here, but no confirmation for US 30. As mentioned before, the reason we wait for that confirmation, it increases our probabilities. And the second you get that confirmation, you know there's going to be a retracement back into our range. That's exactly what happened. We are now at the top of our range. Right there. We're technically inside. This will be our last candle if we don't see any kind of movement. If it keeps dropping, then we're done. If these lows are taken right now, then this market is just consolidating right now, and it might push down further. That's why we wait for our rules. They protect us. 18 seconds left. Doesn't look like we're going to get much movement. But this should be your homework. Gave you homework yesterday. Now today's homework. Come back. Take a look at what would have happened. Would you have got your 1 to 3? Where did it actually turn around? Where did that fair value gap eventually form? At what time? Because clearly it's past our range now. We're still respecting this fair value gap, but there's been no bullish fair value gap created. And now let's see if we take this low again. Yeah, just sitting there. So we'll most likely pass on this. See, looks like it's continuing to drop a little bit further. Just took out these lows. No, not interested. So let me just go over a couple of trades from yesterday really quick. And this is why you want to learn the strategy. You want to be able to execute the strategy on your own. Here is the gold trade from yesterday. I'm going to turn the spotlight indicator off just to show you how strong the blue zone indicator is on its own. There's US 30 as well, dropping. Just going to turn it back to one frame here. Sorry, it's moving super slow here. Okay. So the market manipulated up. Manipulated up first. We saw you could have taken a 5M or even a 1M entry. We took out the lows, the inducement, which is the series of candles that created that push up, tapped it, and dropped all the way to the end dog, right there, the new day opening gap, and then finally into the purple zone. It did create two purple zones. Again, we were aiming for the stronger one, the magenta colored right there. So we took that trade from here all the way down here. That's gold. That's huge. That's a big trade. Even if you set it up on a lower lot size or contract. But this is why you want to be watching. This is why you want to know the strategy inside and out so you can execute it during Asia, during London. Here's London on gold. It manipulated down first. So on NAS, we saw that it didn't actually come to fruition. But on gold, it manipulated down first. There's your setup. There's your entry on the 5M. And it went back to the purple zone and the end dog. So both Asia and London would have been successful on gold. Whereas the New York, we saw it manipulate down first. There's your entry, all the way back up to the blue zone. And gold seems to be the cleaner asset. Maybe we'll start watching it more. The only reason I like to stay away from gold is for beginners. It moves not only fast, but those lot sizes are huge. You can lose even on the lowest lot size, you can lose $100, $200 in a blink of an eye. So you want to know this inside and out. You want to be able to execute this on your own, understand the risk, and know your entries and exits. But look at this, all 3 sessions just using the blue zone indicator. Manipulation, entry, right into our levels. Manipulation, and I've said this before, the purple zone is usually where London reverses. London always has a reversal built into it, and it usually reverses on the purple zone. So the second you saw that, that was even more confluence. Not only did we manipulate down, we bounced off the purple zone. Entry, right into the end dog. Usually our target is to the opposite side of the red zone. We stop short of it, but you would have already been in a safe trade before it turned back around on you, or maybe even got your 1 to 3 there. New York session, manipulated down, 5-minute fair value gap, entry, right into the blue zone, deeper blue zone. You could have trailed this all the way to the top. Let's go back to NAS real quick just to see where it's sitting, and then we'll conclude there. As clean as gold was for the opening session, the New York session, almost makes me jealous that I wasn't looking at it. So there's your bounce. Finally came. A little too late. I'm sure there's a 1M fair value gap in there. But I'll leave it there with those targets. But this late in the game. There's fair value gap in here, 1M. So again, homework. Come back, check if it hit those levels. At this point, I'm not interested. We're past my time. I stick to my rules. So we'll conclude there. If you haven't hit the subscribe button already, please do so. Turn on your notifications so you know when we're live. We'll be live again tomorrow. Let me just check real quick what news is dropping tomorrow and what time we'll be live. Thursday we have majority of the news will be at 8:30 Eastern Standard. We'll try our best to go live tomorrow for opening. That's 9:30 Eastern Standard Time.